Stop thinking about Rome. Stop thinking about Vikings. If you want to see where the real Game of Thrones began, you have to look at a dusty plain in 2600 BCE. For 200,000 years, humans were a species of skirmishers. We fought over a berry bush, a watering hole, or a cave. These weren't wars. They were brawls, chaotic, impulsive, and small. But in the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia, something was changing. The human mind was beginning to organize. We built walls to keep the lions out, and then we built cities to keep the grain in. Ancient history books say civilization started with the plow and the pen. They're wrong. Civilization as we know it, the power, the hierarchy, the borders, was forged in a bloodbath. The Sumer-Elam War didn't just change the map, it changed our DNA. For the first time in history, we stopped being neighbors and started being targets. This is the story of War Zero. 4,500 years ago, Kish was the center of the universe. Imagine a city of 60,000 people, a massive number for the time, living in a geometric miracle of mud brick high-rises. They had the first schools, the first recorded laws, and a complex system of taxes. They were led by King Enmebaragesi. He wasn't a warrior poet, he was a CEO king. He knew that for Kish to survive, it needed one thing that the desert didn't have: metal. To get that metal, he had to look east toward the jagged Zagros Mountains. This was Elam. The Elamites were the shadow people of the Sumerian world. They were hunters, miners, and fiercely independent tribes who lived in stone fortresses on the cliffs. To the people of Kish, the Elamites were soft cattle, trapped in their mud walls. For decades, they traded tin for grain, timber for beer. But as Kish grew, its greed outpaced its gold. The trade routes became a bottleneck. The atmosphere was a powder keg waiting for a single spark to blow the ancient world apart. That spark arrived on the back of a donkey. Legend tells of a silent caravan. Enmebaragesi sent his finest ambassadors to the mountains to negotiate a new trade deal. They never spoke a word. When the caravan finally returned to the gates of Kish, the ambassadors were headless, their mouths stuffed with the very tin they went to buy. It was a primitive insult that demanded a modern response. Enmebaragesi didn't just call for a revenge raid, he did something terrifyingly new. He invented the military-industrial complex. He ordered the weavers to stop making rugs and start making leather cloaks. He ordered the carpenters to take the wheels off the grain carts and bolt them into heavy, four-wheeled platforms. He took the farmers out of the fields and taught them a concept they had never known: discipline. He drew a line in the sand and told them,
"Hold steady, men of Kish. If you stand alone, you die. If you stand as one,
you are a god." He was forging the world's first professional army. The Elamites descended from the mountains, expecting a typical tribal brawl. They expected screaming individuals, chaos, and a quick retreat. What they saw instead was a nightmare from the future, a wall of copper. 1,000 Sumerian soldiers stood in a perfect, silent line. Their spears were leveled like the quills of a metallic porcupine. When the Elamites charged, they didn't hit men, they hit a machine. The spears held, the line didn't move, and then the ground began to vibrate. From the wings of the Sumerian line came the war-wagons. These weren't the fast, elegant chariots of Egypt. These were four-wheeled, onager-drawn tanks. They roared across the cracked earth, the solid wood wheels grinding over the unarmored Elamites with a sound like breaking timber. Enmebaragesi met the Elamite king in the center of the slaughter. It wasn't a duel of honor, it was a demonstration of technology. The Elamite stone-headed mace shattered against the Sumerian bronze-reinforced shield. Stone Age versus Bronze Age. The mountains didn't just lose, they were dismantled. Enmebaragesi won. He carried away the weapons of Elam and returned to Kish to do something even more important than the battle. He told the scribes to write it down. Enmebaragesi, the one who made Elam submit. With those words, he invented the concept of the conqueror. He proved that war was no longer an accident of nature. It was a tool of the state. Look at the Standard of Ur, the artifact that proves this story is real. On one side, you see the massacre. On the other, the peace side, you see the king drinking wine, while his soldiers parade naked, bound captives. The maps have been redrawn 10,000 times since that day, but the machine Enmebaragesi built has never stopped running. We are still his children. Every tank, every uniform, and every border on Earth today exists because of the day stone shattered against bronze. We are still living in the shadow of War Zero.
History doesn't end here. It will be decoded with us.